A warm welcome from TALKWALK. This is Minoli de Almeida, continuing the series on the psychosocial impact of post-COVID, which has devastated our lives. This series is intended to help us overcome and face the new normal. Remember, our feelings and emotions make or break us. In this episode, we focus on youth and leadership. Youth are the most crucial segment of society. For nation building, they have to be guided with integrity, loyalty, responsibility, and discipline. Their apprehensions must be addressed and resolved without divisive attitude. There should be gender and ethnic equality to make it a one Sri Lanka. As our panelist, we have Lakshmi Vijayasundara, co-founder, CEO of Board PAC plus Iron Technologies, a very courageous lady who has ventured into a male-dominated field and excelled. She will continue after which with all the details. Then we have Shalin Balasuriya, CEO and co-founder of CEYLON, a name synonymous with cosmetics and essential oils. They have got recognition in the world with over 100 shops now across the globe. The ambience in the boutiques are electrifying, and it completely relaxes you the moment you get into it. Gayathri Khemadasa, the daughter of the maestro, who has done music in the Czech Republic, in Prague Conservatory. She is a film scorer, and she is also the founder of the Khemadasa Foundation. She has written the film score for the newest film, The Newspaper. Johann Peiris, well, he is, I think, well known to be the climber in Sri Lanka who conquered Everest after many challenges, but better known for cutting stations and now for BBQ station. Let's get on with the talk show. Lakshmini, what have you got to tell our viewers about your success?
So thanks so much, Minoli and RTV for this great talk show. So it's sort of quite a journey, really, because when I went to school or when I was pretty young, I would have never imagined the kind of things I'm doing right now. It seems fairly crazy. So I'm really proud to say that, I mean, everything I do, I feel strongly about doing things global. We're a small island, 21 million people, and when there's 7-8 billion people out there, I kind of feel that there's so much out there that we must consider. So being in the field of IT, it's a field that can easily cross borders and reach everybody globally. There's no limit really. And Sri Lanka, I mean, I'm really fortunate to be in Sri Lanka because we have such good talent in IT that we can actually explore. So talking about youth, that's definitely a career, I don't know, I'm a little biased actually, but it's a career that I would recommend girls and boys to consider, because it just opens up the doors. So as far as talking a little bit about the kind of things that I was able to do is, so we are in 30 countries, over 50,000 leaders, that is like top board members, chairmen, use this Sri Lankan, 100% Sri Lankan product. And we are able to do it being Sri Lankan. I mean, of course, when you do things globally, we cannot do it alone. But I'm really proud to say the strategy, the headquarters, everything is in Sri Lanka. and manufactured completely in Sri Lanka. And we all talk about this brand, Sri Lankan brand being taken out, how difficult it is. It is difficult because the only reason it's difficult is there's not many brands that attempted and ventured out. But obviously, the kind of things like CEYLON or these various things that happen, that really helps us, because that collaboratively help these brands go out. So BoardPack really is used by, I aspire to be the #1 brand globally. We have reached that in Asia Pac. So if you take Malaysia or Singapore, even South Africa, in Africa, India, you'd be surprised, because I was told India, they have got billion people, the software, they're so well known for software. Don't even attempt, Lakshmi, to go to India. And then I have a little story actually on that. The High Commission, I just called the High Commission and asked, and we were fortunate to have this gentleman called Sumed at the time, commercial attaché. He said, Lakshmi, just come, I'll introduce you to some Indian companies. If it works, let's see. And I have to say that we are the #1 brand in India. So that's the little story there. And maybe I'll share more as we go along.
Thank you, Lakshmi. I think she has said a lot for the viewers. Shalin?
So, a little story about CEYLON. We are just about 10 years old. Very pleased to be hitting this milestone of 100 stores just recently. It was all supposed to happen pre-COVID, but everything got pushed on a few months. Thankfully, a few other locations were opening up, so we managed to open those last 3 stores and hit the 100, and we're at 102 right now. The thing with CEYLON is we set out to create a brand that had the legs to go international, and that was a very conscious effort. And we're very proud that every time we open a store or go into another country, we take a little bit of Sri Lanka with us, because the brand encapsulate what it is that we enjoy as Sri Lankans, our culture, our art, our Ayurveda, everything nicely packaged together. And to see that resonate across borders, to see that resonate so well across cultures, and that has become the factor that makes us stand out. And when you go international, the big thing is, how do you stand out, especially in the industry we are at? How do you stand out? How do you get noticed? And I'm very proud to say that all the elements that make us stand out and make us get noticed are Sri Lankan, and that's a big part of what we are. So if there is a message out to young people out there, don't shy away from the fact that you come from Sri Lanka, or that you're a brand from Sri Lanka. There is this misperception that if you want to go international, you have to look and feel foreign. No, you can. The whole thing about going international these days is about authenticity, about differentiation. And authenticity and differentiation comes very naturally to us because we're a small island. And what better way to portray yourself than these elements that come from Ireland. So that's the gist of it.
Brilliant, phenomenal success. Gayathri?
So I was, I think, extremely lucky to have chosen music, and part of the reason obviously was because music was a predominant voice in our household, and fortunately a very encouraged voice. And not only encouraged as entertainment, as a subject, or as a way of doing exams and getting certificates so that it would help me get into a different career, but mainly as to choose as my professional career. And so, as you said, I went to Prague to study music, and then I returned after my studies, and also after going to the States where I did my first opera, Poolan Devi. I returned mainly to run the Khemadasa Foundation, which was not founded by me. It was founded by my father, Gayathri Khemadasa, because he came from a less privileged background, and he didn't have the chance of studying music as much as he wanted to. So he wanted to give that chance to others in Sri Lanka. So after he passed away, I came back to run the Khemadasa Foundation. And as he always said, like, I don't have money to send the whole of Sri Lanka abroad, but I'm sending you, so hoping you'd come back. And since I've come back, I've reopened the Khemadasa Foundation, and we have students from many parts of Sri Lanka who come from various ethnicities, various abilities, and various age groups. So, and also it's not just a place where people come to train their voice or learn music. We also do workshops, and we do all these workshops voluntarily. I take from the younger students, like 6 or 7 year old to 70-year-old students, to go to these workshops. We choose the different schools around Colombo, and we go and train them in music. Even the younger students get a chance of sharing their knowledge with these students. And part of the reason is that it's not just a place where you come to train your voice or learn to music, but it's where you share your knowledge and enhance it, so that you can enhance the surrounding around you and inspire others as well.
Excellent, thank you very much. I think, Johann, you have a long story to tell the viewers.
So you describe me as the mountain climber, but actually by profession I'm a hairdresser, and I started 32 years ago, and I was with Ramani Fernando, one of the leading hairstylists in the country, in the industry. And then of course 20 years ago I started my own business under the brand name Cutting Station, and we expanded here. We had about 3 salons here in Sri Lanka, and then I think, like Shalin said, it was all about it. We always hear about people bringing in brands into the country, international brands into the country. I wanted to take something out, and I was determined to take the brand out. So I started off with a partnership in the UK first of all, and we had our first Cutting Station partnership in the UK, and now we have expanded to Australia. We have 2 branches there, so I have 5 salons altogether, and that is the professional side of things. But of course, I was somebody who always wanted to follow my passion as well, and I was explaining to Gayathri and them earlier on. I was telling them that I was a singer, I was a dancer, I was an actor, and then of course after doing all that, I was a climber as well. I was an adventurer, and I wanted to follow that passion. And we had a lot of obstacles, a lot of people who came against us and said, you know, you're crazy to do things like this, that risk your life. But then if you don't take chances and if you don't move forward in anything, we will never know, you know, the capability that we have within ourselves, and the limits that we can push ourselves to, whether it is business, whatever you do, whatever you choose in life. I think that is something that even our youth today, we are focusing on youth, and I think that is something that really they should be inspired by, to take on whatever you have and fulfill your dreams at any cost. And if you have the determination, you can go ahead.
Excellent. There you are. If you try, you succeed. That's what it is. Chase your dreams, your passions. Anything else you want to share with all 4 of you can join the dialogue.
I mean, I'd like to just share some of the areas that, I mean, I wish someone told me earlier, but, you know, obviously we learn through our hard mistakes and things. But one thing that stood by me very much, I mean, again, talking about board pack, it's a very niche area. So it's for board members. From the beginning, I was told, why are you just doing it for board meetings? Why not, you know, can't you just do it for everything? I mean, this is from my own partners, as in business partners. Sometimes, I remember there were like that's conversation in Malaysia at Maxis, that's the largest telco, they partner us. So they got me to a room and they were sort of, I would say almost like saying, we can't sell you unless you go wide. And I said, just, you know, there's Microsoft, there's Teams, all this stuff, just sell those. If you want the #1 board meeting, talk to me, otherwise we'll have to let it go. So it was quite scary to say it. I wasn't even sure whether it was the right thing to say it at that time because it was risky. But they respect us greatly because we stuck to what we are good at. And even today I can stand and say, tell me if there's any other product better than us. And that's because it's niche, we are able to control, you know, our quality element. But if we went wide, you know, we can't compete with these larger products like Microsoft because they have 1,000 features. And, you know, we cannot keep up with that. So, so that was something I'd like to share. So people will come and tell you all sorts of things saying, you know, go wide, you know, that kind of thing. But just focus on something you're good at and stick with that. And the path will find you. I think at least it found for me. So I'm so glad. So we can, because I can strongly sort of say I can be number one globally. It can be done, even as a Sri Lankan company with a certain, certain sort of scope we're talking about. So that's something I'd like to share.
There you are. She's one courageous lady. Everybody can do anything if you try. Shalin, anything to add to?
Just taking from what you said, and since we're talking about youth and entrepreneurship as well, just talking about sticking at what you do best and really putting time and effort into that. I think I speak at a lot of entrepreneurship programs, and you see a lot of startups happening now with young people. Young people are a little more encouraged to go out and make things happen, which is fantastic. But what a lot of them end up doing is try to do everything themselves. Being an entrepreneur, you're not going to be able to do every single thing, and if you try to do every single thing, the chances are you're not going to get the little bit of magic that you bring into it is going to die off. Because as an entrepreneur, something I tell all the young entrepreneurs is, figure out what is the magic you're bringing into your brand or your organization. Is it your marketing skill? Is it your developing skill? Is it something that you can do to leverage things? What do you, as the founder, as the entrepreneur, bring into that? And make sure you're spending the most number of hours of your working hours on that. Because if you're worried about the accounting books and if the lights are on and the rent is paid and all those things, then you're taking away from that magic that makes your brand different, that makes your brand unique, that makes your brand special. And if soon as that goes, everything else around it dies off. So surround yourself with good people. Know your accounting enough to know if someone is doing something wrong. Know your HR enough to know that if something is going wrong. Know things well enough to know if something's not right. But spend your time on what you do best, and that will give returns. And surround yourself with really good people. Invest in people, because people are what makes brands, organizations work.
Absolutely. Genuineness of people and sincerity. That's what lacks in this country. I'm so sad. Gayathri?
Yeah, so I'd like to just talk about like how dreams can come true even at a moment when you think, God, it's so far away. I remember like studying in Prague, and we were sharing the whole class about like, what's your goal? Most of us wanted to be solo pianists and so on. And so when I said I'd love to like work on films and see my name on the title, and everybody, like including the teacher, said it's much better to be a professional pianist and have that as a career, because it's such a difficult thing to get into the film industry. And so my name at that moment became very small and kind of in my dream vanished off the screen. So fast forward another 100 years and here I end up winning the award for the best soundtrack and being the first female composer to do that. And so I just want to say, like, just follow your dreams.
Well done. There you are, women. She's a good role model. About you, talk about your foodie.
Yeah, so I think like you all mentioned earlier, I think you've also got to have passion for what you do. Hairdressing was something that I really had in me, and I cultivated that to really be a brand as well. But cooking was something that I really loved doing. I had no intention of starting a restaurant at that time, but I used to love experimenting with food at home and entertaining and letting people try out my food and give me feedback, and that's something I always did. And I remember lots of people who came in told me, you should start a restaurant, but that wasn't really the thing for me. But then going forward, I realized that I need to experience this with everybody else as well, and I started off the restaurant last year. But I think one of the key factors there again, like Shalin mentioned, is to really see what your strong points are and then be there. But you have to have the support system also, to support that business and take it forward. So I'm there full time. If I'm not there, I don't think it'll be the same. I'm there,
Absolutely.
I'm cooking, I'm in the kitchen, I'm out there talking to the guests half the time, and that's what makes it real. for me as well, for my dream to come true. There's no point in me just starting the restaurant and just letting other people run the thing and moving out. Yeah, the recipes are mine. I've got to see that they come out right, you know, and that whole passion that you have for it is what makes the brand and makes it possible and makes it a reality. And I think that's very important to whoever, whatever field they choose. You know, you have to have that in you. Develop the skill that you have within you, and if you do it with a passion, I think you can really bring it out. Yeah, that's key.
On that note, we got to pause for a little while for a short commercial break. Welcome back to TALKWALK. As we said before, this series is intended to help us overcome the psychosocial impact and help us also to face the new normal. Now, we were with Johann. Can you please elaborate on your food? Because today domestics are a problem and people have no way of going and getting things out. If it goes to lockdown, we don't know. So tell us all about your food.
It focuses on barbecued food, but we have a whole range of other varieties also that we have. And whenever you say barbecue, everybody thinks of meats, and you know that's the first thing that comes into your mind. But we have a huge range of vegetarian options as well. So it also shows that you can diversify. And there are so many opportunities that you can create actually, even in the food industry. And I think with COVID and with the lockdown, we all see that people have really gone into ventures of food. You know, everyone is at home, they're cooking, they're delivering, they're supplying, and that is something that really has taken off in this area. And I think it has really expanded. People being at home, families being at home, they've come together, they've put things together. But also I think the delivery service that we have in this industry has really expanded, and I think it has taken it to a different level, I would say. And that has really helped the consumer as well as the supplier as well, to a great extent.
I think there is economic benefits as well. People can make some extra money because money is very short. What have you all got to say? What is your opinion about this, about cooking, catering?
See, I think what's happened, like what Johann was saying, is how people responded to this whole lockdown and so on, where not just, there was people responding, but there were the Sri Lankan companies who responded as well. Companies that were never in the delivery business started getting in the delivery business. There were electronic companies who got their staff repurposed to go into delivery. There were companies in hospitality who started doing vegetable delivery. Lots of home cooks coming out, which is a great lesson for entrepreneurs as well, because it's about being dynamic. It's about understanding the new conditions and adapting fast to it. And adaptability in this day and age is essential. I mean, look at the situation we are in now. We don't know what's going to happen in the next week. Absolutely. But how ready are we as organizations, as companies, as brands to adapt to a sudden change? And if you saw the brands and companies that did well during this lockdown and during this post-COVID era, are the companies that adapted really well. It may be repurposing your staff. It may be going into different channels. It may be going into a whole different aspect of business. It may be there were tech products that were repurposed as well. So being dynamic as a company, being able to think and adjust fast is going to be a big part of success, and that's something that people should keep in mind. Also, as young entrepreneurs, another big thing is constant learning. Absolutely. Learning and developing yourself, because in this digital age, cycles are shorter, trends are shorter, new things coming up all the time. If you are not willing to learn, I think Johann will talk about his industry, the hairdressing industry as well. If you're my mom was in that industry, and even then there was constantly learning, innovating, so that you could give your consumer something new, and that has to be a big part of any entrepreneur's life.
So in his opinion, adaptability is a key in this new normal. I think if everybody adapts themselves
Yes.
and not wait in that hopeless situation, oh, we don't know what is happening, that miserable situation, I would say.
Yes. So that's an interesting thing, taking on what Shalin was talking about, because our industry, for example, now when we compete with US vendors, we don't have the edge because, I mean, they have larger workforces. Let's say in New York, for example, they'll go have coffee, they'll have the relationship, but this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity period where everybody is on lockdown. So whether we are from Sri Lanka or whether this guy is from New York, we are all in the same boat. So we are actually, I mean, pivoting. I think many companies are doing so. And just as Shalin said, we're exploring that. I don't know whether it will fully work. We're seeing better results. Our audience, like the chairman, those people are at home now. They were shuttling between, cities earlier. Now they are actually checking their mails. So we can reach them, in various modes electronically. So there's a lot of like a strange opportunity globally happening for us. And when I say us, it's not us, but anyone who's reaching people IT wise. I mean, of course, we cannot deliver from Sri Lanka to US, but in terms of goods. But if you are selling something like IT, it can be delivered. So it's a very, I mean, we've been calling it the equalizer. It's a once in a lifetime equalizer globally. It doesn't matter with, so it's an interesting thing. I mean, I would really encourage people to try it out, because no one can build those face-to-face relationships these days. And, let's just do it.
I think you got to be very mentally tough, because if you're mentally not tough, you can't do all these things that you're talking about, because it is a huge adaptability process to be strong in your mind. And mind is the thing that makes you sick, and depression, sickness, mental illness. So I think we have to adapt to be strong, that we can do it. And I would recommend that we have to take these short breaks. Whatever work we are doing, switch off and look forward to the next, say, 15-20 minutes after this break.
Yeah, and just in my experience in my field, so right before lockdown, I was going to have some performances in UK. They were going to perform my work, so I was all excited, and suddenly everything gets cancelled, postponed. So as you mentioned, it was a tough time at the beginning for me mentally, because I actually work when I'm working, not when I'm resting. So that's my personality. But then again, few weeks later, we started performing online. I took part in a worldwide performance where we performed online and connected with all these amazing artists from around the world. So I actually think in one way it opened us to so many new ways of expressing ourselves, sharing our arts or music or whatever craft that we are working on. And also I think a lot of opera houses internationally gave live streaming free of charge, and even I think Harvard University library open for free of charge for anybody to read. So I think it just kind of reading about those opportunities and taking that chance.
I think it gave you all a lot of opportunity to connect with different people as well, in your industry.
Absolutely.
Which you wouldn't have, I think, normally got.
Exactly.
On a normal platform,
Exactly.
You wouldn't, trying to get in touch with somebody, the world famous artists all over. But suddenly you saw, because of social media and the connections that you have, and because of this lockdown, you saw people connecting, I think.
Absolutely.
In that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
The time factor.
Yeah.
The time factor, people were too busy, and this was nature's way of telling them now slow down. And it has opened up a lot of avenues. And you have, things that you thought you'd never achieve. Now there was time to think and achieve.
Yes. And in fact, even in our industry, if you take the SAP main forum or the Microsoft main forum, which happens in US, it's extremely expensive. To travel there is expensive. The whole thing is so expensive. It's free. You can do it from home, so you actually get to see those speakers, and this is once in a lifetime opportunities. So there's a lot we can do while this lockdown situation is there, that possibly is not reachable for people in Sri Lanka, for example. So it's kind of crazy. So like you said, it's mindset. We have to sort of, it's up to us, right? The environment can, deliver anything. So we have to look at the opportunities and make use of it, and kind of, there's up and down, right? So that's interesting. So our industry has incredible amount of, just like Gayathri was talking about, lots of training which is free, which is unreachable usually. So yeah.
So with all the negatives, there's so many positives that people can look forward to with the lockdown. Maybe it's a kind of blessing as well. Any other?
No, I think about what you said with mindset is very, very important. We as Sri Lankans sometimes go into the Monakarana, the mindset, and you need
Karume.
you have to slip from Monakarana to Monaharikarana.
Yes.
Because like she was saying, there is a lot of resources right now that are available for free in terms of learning a new skill, learning things you didn't have time to do, expand your skill set. See, another great equalizer before this was the internet, and it was a resource that became available to almost everyone. Now the smartphone penetration is high, our internet connectivity is good across the country, so this resource is out. A lot of things that would have usually cost money, especially in terms of courses and learning and all that, is now free. So this time you have at home, yes, spend time with the family, do all those things, but there is a time that you can use to develop yourself as well. So it's a great opportunity for the youth to take advantage of.
Don't give up.
Yeah. And just to add to it now, so we talk about the trainings, but I came across this thing called accelerators, which is basically, if you want investment, if you were from Sri Lanka, it's very difficult to access the US investors because you have to spend 6 months if you're selected, which means you have to pay for yourself. And there's this whole program you have to go through. So those accelerators are now online. So you can do it from Sri Lanka.
And the time zone?
Yeah, I mean, so the whole thing. So it's now accessible to like a smaller startup. So I just saw that, and I saw some YouTube videos of, ICTA was doing a lot of, ICTA here was doing, last year they did a lot of great like programs. They brought speakers from overseas, and those speakers actually talk about these accelerators. If you Google, you'll find, even through ICTA, if you Google ICTA and speakers, you'll find these things, and I think the startup should look at that, because that's, again, a strange situation, great situation.
Gayathri?
Yeah, and I think also, as we all mentioned, like it brought communities together in a way I haven't seen before. Like suddenly, like we started noticing our neighbors, and suddenly, like I never knew that I loved bread so much as when during the first 2 weeks of lockdown when we didn't have any bread. And I love food, but unfortunately I'm not a good cook. So I even started cooking. So I think just like in many levels, like our skills that we have never tried or like ventured into brought together. And I just found it amazing that as a community, like we started thinking not just about ourselves in such a stressful situation, but about others. Like everybody would call you and said, oh, these and these people are delivering. Do you want to do you want to get a delivery? Or like, or would encourage someone else who's actually a good cook at home and say, hey, why don't you deliver? I'll call my friends and say for you to like, have customers. So I think it brought our community into a totally great level. And also I must say, as a animal lover as well, I found so many people going out there and feeding animals and tending to them. So kudos to everybody who thought around themselves as well about the environment.
Reaching out and caring.
Yes.
This did to so many of us, because we realized what it is to be in a situation like this. Before, we took everything for granted.
I have a little story. It's not related to
Go
COVID,
on then.
but because it's about the leadership and entrepreneurship, it's again another lesson I learned. It's again about going global. So there's this myth that going global is like this big thing. You have to be really big and matured to be there. So just to tell you, this boat pack that I talked about, doing really well. We had only 2 clients, and I got an opportunity. Our first client was Nations Trust, NTB. I was presenting at SLT, and then the Maxis, Malaysian, as I said, the partners, they just happened to be there, and they asked, Lakmini, do you have something going on in Malaysia? And I said, no, I'd love to have you all. So next week we flew there, and the product was hardly built. In fact, I remember going on the flight, talking to my colleagues, saying, my God, what are we doing? We're going to get thrashed here, right? So then we went there, and I just want to mention, like, Sri Lankans always have like surfers from, like, I don't know, from nowhere, and helped us. So Suren, who was the Mobitel CEO earlier, he was CW at Maxis. I didn't know this. So he kind of almost ran to me and said, I'm so glad it's you. Let me introduce you. And he sort of said, this is Mahathir's son. This is the chairman. And he took me to the chairman and said, Chairman, this is Lakmini. She's one of the vendors from Sri Lanka, most trusted for us at Mobitel. You don't have to worry. I mean, that kind of thing. So I'm just saying, when people, you can't predetermine the situation. So my view is, as soon as you think you can put something together, if you have an opportunity, just do it. Because all you can do is fail, right? And fail is back to square one. No? So I don't know whether it's good advice, but it's worked for me. And having said that, it seems like the doors opened and we just had Maxis. No, it generally takes me 3 years. I mean, it's like my magic number. 3 years to get a market going. So it's a lot of hard work, because even if the CEO said okay, then they put us to the next level, right? And then I remember, I mean, it's kind of a joke now, because I remember calling these people. Now I'm from Sri Lanka, they're there. So he's saying, I'm in the tube, call me later. Then he goes, oh, I just started my next meeting, call me later. So, and they themselves said that they thought this was too difficult, and they were trying to blow us off, right? And then they finally thought, we can't get rid of them, let's just do it. So they themselves, like, now they are friends now, the group. So it just saying, it can be done. Only thing is, there's a lot of hurdles. You just have to keep pushing. So it's one of our biggest markets.
So honesty and trust are key in going forward. Do you agree? Honesty.
It
is a bit of a sore point.
Well, perseverance, really. So whatever happens, people orient. And I mean, that was my Malaysia. I mean, every story I have, like Vodacom in South Africa, Africans they're different. I mean, we are used to like Asian culture, there's a certain way, but African culture is, I must say, is different. But, it's different. I just want to say it's different. So we measured ourselves first thinking everybody is the same. It's not. But there again, so always some connection came from Sri Lanka. So the High Commissioner for South Africa, the South African gentleman in Sri Lanka had a friend, chairman in Vodacom. It's one of the biggest telcos. So he called this guy and said, Lakmini will come and meet you. I mean, I traveled like 6 times there, that period. So he met us, he put us. But again, it took us 3 years. So, and what I most enjoy is, I mean, yes, my thing is about software, but it's all about the people, because we're meeting so many different types of people in different countries, and you sort of start to appreciate the differences. And like you said, there's that commonality of trust and honesty and various things, which, I mean, I really encourage people from Sri Lanka to just go out there,
There's nothing called instant noodles, is there?
It isn't.
You've got to persevere. The time comes for everything.
Talking about perseverance, I'm actually because when I get new students, usually the questions coming from parents or students themselves is like, will I be able to go to a Trinity College exam or Royal College exam, so on. So when I first, after doing all these exams in Sri Lanka, and when I first went to Prague, I was studying with this professor, and usually he only takes students, very few students a year, and only from around the age of 3, because after that it's more difficult to train them. And so I was 16, so I was lo and behold, right, I thought we had an audition, and shockingly he chose me. And he said, but you know what, for the next 6 months you're not going to touch the piano, you're going to practice technique on the wooden board of the piano. So so the next 6 months I was just playing on that, and while my parents are paying a lot of money for me to play on the wooden board, and you think you just fly back home and play at home. So when I called my father and I told him the bad news, he said, "Oh my God, you found the best teacher, stick with him." So yeah, so when I came back after 6 months for a holiday to Sri Lanka, so like the normal Sri Lankan thing is like, "Oh my God, like, will you play us something?" I couldn't even play what I played before because my only skill was just like my technique. So, but I didn't give up, and I'd like to, just whatever. And so many moments during those 6 months, and later on I thought, God, man, why am I doing this? So it's just about like, it's worth it.
Again, we have to pause for a little while and go in for a short commercial break. Welcome back to TalkWalk. In the last segment, we spoke of trusting, honesty, and adapting. In this segment, we will talk of what each one of us have to offer the viewers, starting with Lakmini.
Yes, so my experience to share is as an entrepreneur that is striving to create something globally that I'm passionate about. So the advice would be for youth or anyone, really, if you're passionate about something, I mean, in my case it was IT and that kind of creating something that was interesting, I really would say that follow it, because the thing is, it's many people will, I mean, in my case also, even what I select, many people have lots of opinions, and all that mattered to me is that if what I like to do was useful for somebody, either for me or for some people I know, that was simple enough to be something that had demand. So it was as simple as that, and actually the simpler it was, the better. So I'd really say, from an entrepreneur point of view, all you need is something actually as simple as possible. Our success also has been the fact that what we deliver is so easy to use, and as I mentioned earlier, the focus. So as it's very, very easy to get distracted because there are so many other people doing things which seem to be very, very progressive or whatever. But as we sort of discussed earlier, in this particular case, board pack, we just stuck to boards. We still stick to boards, and we are now branded for boards. Anywhere, like they know us for boards. So you got to find your specific area and try to say no. I mean, actually saying no is much more difficult than saying yes, and it's less objection. So that's another area. And the third thing for me is really that perseverance in everything, because I always tell my team, if it was easy, then there'll be like 1,000 people. I mean, kind of like yours, Johann, because you all were the first people to get to. It was easy, how come it's not done until now? Because obviously the harder it is, the better the, I don't know, whatever. It's really for you, really, initially. And then depending on your cause, because it has to make you happy, first. Yeah. Otherwise, why would you do something difficult? So, I mean, there's times, like even in my company, when things are tough, like COVID time. Initially, obviously we never expected this. This is not something planned. And it's tough because lockdowns in India, lockdowns in South Africa, wherever these places, it means we can't sell. So obviously we are pivoting and things, but we had plans, right? We had plans to grow this year. There's lots of things, can't do it. Right? But irrespective of COVID, like I said, my magic number is 3 years, generally. Sometimes it's longer, but at least 3 years, until 3 years, I don't get impatient because I know it takes that long. So those are a couple of areas I can sort of think of, because there's a lot really. But if it's something worth it, it will be hard. And if you don't love it, obviously you are likely to give up. So it's a cliche, but it's really true. So that's what I'd like to say.
Like the old adage, there is no pleasure without pain. Shalin,
if I was to break down for young entrepreneurs, and just in life and entrepreneurship generally, is one big one is dream big. If you don't dream big, you're not going to get anywhere. Don't wait for things to happen. So you dream big, break it down into goals, smaller goals, and start achieving that, which is key. Keep learning. Constant learning means constant innovation. You need to keep doing that, because in today's world there's nothing you can do if you don't constantly learn. The other big one is perseverance. Persevering it comes naturally if the other two are in place, because you're doing something that you have dreamt of, that you have now broken down into goals. So those three things, in terms of actually putting a business together or product together that you want to take global, remember that Sri Lanka is an amazing incubation place. It's small enough for you to build your product, test it, try it, tweak it before you send it out there. Sri Lanka is also very well connected. You can always find someone you want to get through 3 other people. So use what Sri Lanka has to offer in incubating your product before you take it out, which is an exceptional position to be in. Use the advantages of being in a small country when you take something out. And the bigger picture is, the ultimate goal is not money, it's not position, it's happiness. So work towards something that makes you happy.
Absolutely. Happiness is the key.
So I would say think different, and mainly like go at it. Like sometimes things get thrown to your path, like not just things, sometimes you feel like they're mountains that you have to move, and that's perfect, because you're not just opening the view for yourself, but you're opening the view for a whole wide world to think in a different perspective. And it's not easy. I think some of the examples that we've all shared shows that it's not easy, but it's definitely I think worth it.
Yeah, so I think I'll go back to my mountain story. Yeah, and
Please do.
When in 2016, when we were actually planning this, it was a 5-year planning process. And during that time, people really thought we were nuts to do this. They thought we were mad, because no Sri Lankan had ever attempted it before. And they looked at us and they thought, what makes you think you can do this? Yeah, but there were companies that didn't even want to see us. Yeah, people who didn't want to meet us because they thought we were crazy to even think of it. But it's that thought that grows eventually, and that dream, as you said, the dream that grows eventually. But if we don't have the perseverance, yeah, and if we don't push hard enough, it'll never happen. It'll never become a reality. And of course, you'll have your obstacles. You'll have your obstacles all the time. There will be people that will come against it. My family, both our families, Jayanti and my families both, at the beginning, they just didn't want us to go. They thought we were crazy to even think of it. They tried to stop us only because of the connection that they had and because of the love they had for us. Yeah, they knew that it was a reality, that there was a chance that we might not come back. But it was something we had dreamed of, and if we don't try, we will never know. Yeah, we were not going to take any crazy risks up there. I was faced with a situation where I had to turn back just 400 meters before the summit. I was told I hadn't enough oxygen. And at the spur of the moment at that time, I said, I'm going, because this was a dream and I couldn't let it go. I had worked for 5 years for it. There was a lot of money that had been spent on it. There was a whole nation behind us waiting here. And I just didn't want to let it go. But then I had to think, at what cost, at what price? It was my life on the line. I would have been a hero, but a dead hero. And is that worth it? So it puts you in a situation there where you have to really think. You have to put things into perspective at that time and then think about it. Life was more important to me, and I realized, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter getting up there. Our dream was to take the Sri Lankan flag to the top of the world, and we did it. The two of us together as a team. And it was team spirit at that time. It didn't matter who went up, but it was taking that flag to the top of the world. And once I knew that was okay. I needed to come back. But of course, when I came back, and the question that was asked was, will you ever go back? And I said no, because it was too hard a task. and I knew the dangers that I had faced. But this urge keeps coming back to you, and it is that urge that is inside you, and that is what we all have, whether we choose a business, whether our focus is on anything, whether it's a sport, whether it's a business, whether it's something that you like, a passion of yours. It's that urge that comes from inside, the desire that comes from inside. And I suddenly realized I'm never going to be able to live with this if I don't give it another shot. Yeah, and I went back. And that's how I was able to achieve my dream and my goal at the end of it by getting 2 years later, getting to the top of the world again. And that's what I want to sort of reiterate here and really instill in the young people here. Don't give up. There will be the obstacles always. You will start something, but don't give up. If you have the determination, the will, and the strength to do it, you can go forward and you can achieve your goals.
There you are. That's good advice. I think that's all we have time for today, for this episode. Up until next week, do not forget to tune in to our TV TalkWalk at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday. This is Minoli de Almeida signing off.